What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. So in this video, I want to talk about black women and, the decision that they have when it comes to the type of children that they're going to have. And ultimately, it tends to boil down to biracial daughter versus black daughter, or vice versa, black daughter versus biracial daughter. You know, Seemingly it always boils down to that. I'm like, well, you could have a son. You could have a black son or a biracial son. Then what? But folks don't really want to talk about that, because typically it would be a 50-50 chance, a boy or a girl, right? But yeah, this conversation has come up because, some black women are filing colorism complaints while perhaps bean swirlers are considering bean swirlers. And folks are crying foul on that because they're like, no, you can't file a colorism complaint and be a swirler. You can't complain about colorism while creating the same problem that you're complaining about. Right? And let's be honest. No, even whether the black woman is a swirler or not, never swirled a day in her life, her filing her colorism complaint, ultimately, folks, particularly black men, are going to dismiss it, whether it's coming from a black female swirler or a black, you know, woman who's black men only. Either or, um, it's going to be dismissed. All right. It's just that when it comes to the black female, black women who swirl, then, oh, okay, that's the reason why we ain't taking your colorism complaints seriously. But when it comes to the black women who are black men only who file colorism complaints, oh, it'll just be another reason. It's going to be something, right? So, you know, please, don't base your decision purely on that. Like, oh, well, I guess I can't complain about colorism anymore. Yeah, you can. You can. You can complain about colorism while having a biracial child and being in a relationship with a non-black man. You can. Just like there's black men who complain about racism while being with non-black women, especially white women, and fighting against it and advocating against it again and again and again. Yes, you can. You probably should not. It probably wouldn't be the best thing to do, but, you know, everyone else is doing it. So you can take your piece of the pie too, right? Like, you can take your piece of the pie, you know? And mind you, the black men who complain about racism while being with non-black women, they still have valid points, right? That's partially why people are not so quick to dismiss them, right? At least black people, right? And there's black women who date interracially and complain about colorism and have valid points too, right? Again, it's not like it shouldn't be plan A, you know, but whatever, you know. But I do see this argument being brought up a lot when it comes to, black women who are like, they want to put their image first, you know, they don't like colorism, they're against it, etc. And those women who swirl, people have issues with that because those women are swirling, but seemingly, oh, you're so pro-black. But I think it's more so them being more pro their image, but even still folks having issues with it because they feel like perhaps like, you're creating the problem, you know. Meanwhile, folks don't really call out the black men who definitely helped create the problem. I mean, really, if you want to trace back this problem, that's a good portion of where this problem's coming from. The fact that, the black men are swirling and bringing their children into the community and passing them off as black, and then shaming the black community for not accepting them. And then there's some black people who want to accept them because they're just so infatuated with, certain hair textures, certain skin tones, certain eye colors, etc., especially when they're on females, etc. No. But my first question to that is, the people who do want to bring that up, it's like, they want to bring up, oh, you're going to create the same problem that you complain about. Well, my question to that is like, well, why do you care? Why do you care? Because a lot of times, a lot of these people really don't care about your problems. It's pretty evident about how they treat your complaints about colorism or about really anything that pertains to black women, especially phenotypically black women, right? So the first thing is, well, why do you care if I'm creating the problem that I complain about? Like, why? Why do you care about that? Because now all of a sudden they care. Isn't that interesting? Now they care, right? But before, it was like, oh, well, that's not really a big deal. Oh, just love your blackness. Oh, colorism, that's a part of white supremacy. We was brainwashed by the white man, and look what he did to the black man. Yeah, those things are true, but, at this point, I feel like, colorism is the part of white supremacy that a lot of people, particularly a lot of black people, secretly want to hold on to, because, again, folks want to say it's a part of white supremacy, but I don't really see them pushing back on it like that, right? Because a lot of things that are part of white supremacy, like, say, police brutality, black people are pushing back on that, right? But, yeah. So, first question, why do you care? That should be the, pretty much the first thing. Like, why do you really care? But I do know that there's some people who genuinely do have a concern about that. And, it's a understandable thing to be concerned about. But seeing that they're so concerned, another question would be, do you have these conversations with black men who swirl and bring their black children, especially their biracial children, especially their biracial daughters in the community, to be put above, fully black women? Is that really a conversation that's ever had? Where it's like, hey, you are going to erase black women, black man, if you keep doing this. Black women are going to be erased. Does that ever come up? Nah. Folks aren't as quick to try and regulate what black men do. At least when it comes to, like, the black community, right? When it comes to the black community, folks are really quick to regulate what black women do, right? For one reason or another. And as well, there's going to be challenges when it comes to raising black children and biracial children. Both of those set of children are going to have challenges, and there's going to be difficulties that come with raising both of those kids, or those types of kids. So perhaps it's more easy to raise a black kid if you are black yourself. Perhaps, but then again, maybe it's easier to raise a biracial kid, depending on how the biracial kid comes out looking, maybe, maybe there's some things that the biracial kid will not go through that the black kid would go through, and vice versa. And as well, I do see, black women complaining about black men a lot of times, right? But they never come up with I've never heard anyone bring up the argument like, well, why do you create black men that you complain about? You know, I don't really see that come up at all, right? Folks are just like, well, that's just a part of life. That's just what it comes with, you know? But I do think that black women perhaps need to be more selective about the black people, and really just the people in general, but especially the black men who they procreate with. I do think that's a thing. And as well, something else that was brought up, it was like, well, folks typically don't have a problem with the biracial folks existing. It's that they're existing in spaces that they shouldn't be in. I think that's the issue. And again, this does trace back a lot of times to black men, because a lot of times, like, black men tend to have like a lot of biracial children and seemingly have a low-key obsession with biracial children, at least biracial daughters, to an extent of it being like somewhat of a fetish, coming off as a bit sexual as well. You know, something that's not really called out as much. But again, we're in the black community, and the black community does protect predators, you know, whether they're violent predators or sexual predators, etc. So that's not really a surprise. And as well, like, a lot of black men tend to have children with women who have like colorist and sometimes racist sentiments too, which they pass along to their kids and pass their kids along to the black community. Again, something that's not really called out. Like, sometimes black men have children with white women, and the white women want to call their biracial children, especially the females, all types of N-words, you know. And, you know, sometimes they have issues towards just the biracial children in general, but a lot of times I feel like the issues are directed towards the black female biracial children. Then even if it's like a black man with like a light-skinned black woman or a biracial black woman, there's like issues that pop up in that type of relationship dynamic too, like colorism issues that pop up in that. A lot of times these colorism issues trace back to that too, right? You know, and it's like, okay, if we're going to have this discussion, we do need to have it like all around, right? Since we're so concerned about the erasure of darker skinned black women, and concerned that darker skinned black women may be contributing to their own erasure, that's great to be concerned about that, but let's also address the other things that contribute to the erasure of darker skinned black women. Right. Let's address it all. You know? Don't just stop at this point. Don't just stop there. Let's go the whole mile. Yeah. Also, another thing that's extremely important to point out here is that, you know, in these discussions, I hear, white women don't let their biracial daughters replace them, you know, and represent them and whatnot. And that's true. But you also have to realize that that white woman has the help of white men to make sure that that doesn't happen as well. You don't see white men pushing the biracial women as white women like that. You notice that. You don't see that. Even though Rebecca went outside in the community, they're not going to be pushing Rebecca's biracial daughter as being the new standard of whiteness, the new white queen. You know, nah. Especially not Rebecca's biracial children, right? See, that white woman has the help of white men. She has the backing of white men. Unfortunately, black women don't have that. No. If black women had that, then we wouldn't be here. All right, so we have to be honest about that too. No. If anything, it's more like the opposite. The black men tend to help push the biracial daughters their biracial daughters to replace and represent black women. You know, why is that? And then when there is pushback by black women, you know, darker skinned black women, then they're shamed for it. If you're not rolling out the welcoming mat, for them, then folks looking at you and trying to shame you and guilt you and, you know, criticize you as, the black woman who's trying to just protect her own image. So again, we have to be honest. Let's be honest about this. Folks ain't really concerned about this. Not like that. If the concern was there, we wouldn't be here now. We wouldn't be in this timeline. Right? And this timeline would not exist. Shout out to Mortal Kombat 11. All right. And whoop-de-doo as well for Melina coming through. But back to this though. So yeah, I guess I'll bring this video to a close. I don't want to go on for too long about this, but while on the surface I do think it's definitely something to talk about and have genuine conversations about, honest dialogue about. Yes, not just these little gotcha moments, like, oh yeah, up now can't swirl. If you swirl, you gonna brace yourself, and we ain't gonna take your colorism complaints seriously, right? Nothing like that. Like real honest dialogue. Yeah. And as well, we do need to talk about the situation in totality, not just one segment of the situation, because honestly, yeah, there are darker skinned women who contribute to the problem of, dark skinned female erasure. But honestly, a lot of that does come from them accepting black men's biracial daughters as being black. See how it traces back to that? So yeah, we do need to have a conversation, and we can definitely have a discussion about this, but it has to be honest though. That's the thing. And I'm not sure if folks are ready to truly have an honest discussion about that. I think people are just ready to, once again, blame dark-skinned black women, or just blame black women in general. Right? Just blame them, right? No. And as well, we never really talk about, the biracial daughter. Well, we never talk about the biracial women and the light-skinned women who end up birthing dark-skinned women or brown-skinned women who they don't like. That doesn't come up either. When these problematic women, light-skinned and biracial, end up raising daughters that they don't even really like that for one reason or another. Maybe they came out too much with their father's phenotype. Maybe they remind them too much of their father. Maybe they're just colorist and never really liked those features, at least on women. And then honestly, sometimes those women have nasty things, and they think a certain way about black men and really just black people in general, and view them as being somewhat lower than them while them dealing with them still, I guess. And that's the thing too. This could go on for a minute, but I'll bring it to a close. But yeah, but that's the thing too, where it's like these women coming through, light skinned and biracial, sometimes coming through with like, oh, they're better than. But this is the only community you really can get away with that in. Any other community, you ain't really better than anybody, right? And that's why to stick around in the black community, because that no other community is having that, right? And shout out to them. Good for them. Yeah. And as well, just a quick question, like, who raises better biracial children? Like black women, darker skinned black women or darker skinned black men, Who raises better biracial children? Who raises less problematic biracial children? You know, a lot of times these black men end up skipping off and not even in their biracial children's lives, right? Then they're just left to be raised by the non-black parent, right? But, long story short, for me personally, like, if I was biracial and, somehow had a choice to choose between, having a black father and a non-black mother, or a black mother and a non-black father, I would probably lean towards having the black mom and the non-black father. And I would do that more so for the having the black mom. Because I just feel like it's more like the children are more likely to have some sense, as long as the black mom isn't a complete wild coon on the loose, then I think the kids would be better off with having just the black mom. But that's just my opinion about that. But what do you guys think about all this? Let me know. This was a bit of a rant, my apologies, but I just wanted to get that out there. So let me know what you think. Until the next video, adios and goodbye for now.